Welcome back to the Red Barn. Today I'm going to be covering the preparation of the panels that go inside this rail and style panel construction of the oak storage bench. So as you see, I start out with a 2 foot by 4 foot project panel that I got from the local hardware store. This is oak veneer plywood, 1/2 inch. And I'm rough cutting the height of each panel right now. And for the sake of time, I will speed up this process. Here you'll find me marking out my measurements and then using some painter's tape to cover where the saw will come through the wood on the underside when I make these cross cuts. And I'm doing this in an attempt to minimize the amount of chip out that happens when I'm cutting across the grain on this very thin veneer plywood. So it's kind of a blind cut, that's why I had to measure it before I laid the tape down, and then I make my cut. And after the cut is complete and I have my panels done, all I have to do is peel off the tape, and the edges are pretty crisp and they just need some minimal tuning up before they're inserted into the sides of the bench. So here I am just making the all the final dimensions here for these panels. I'm working with 2 different sizes. The front and the back of the oak bench will take 4 panels of one certain size, and then the sides will take 2 panels of a different size. So I'm taping, cutting, until I get everything done. Once complete with my dimensioning cuts, I had to take out my regular blade and replace it with my dado stack. I have this dado stack set to 3/8 of an inch because that is the depth of the dados that are in my rails and stiles. Here I'm using that zero clearance fence that I made in the previous video, and I'm using it as a zero clearance dado insert. Now, the idea behind this, I know this probably isn't the best way to do it, but I was using that square to try to reference off my table and not off of the throat plate, just because they're not exactly parallel to each other. And here I am just using a piece of scrap to dial in the depth that I need to fit my rails perfectly. Once I get that all dialed in properly, then it's time to start cutting the rabbets out of the panels themselves. Once I double check with the actual stock that I'm working with, then I go ahead and proceed to cut all the rabbets on all 4 sides of every panel. You see me pressing downward as I'm pushing forward. And again, it's me referencing off of the cast iron tabletop and not relying on the flatness of my throat plate, just because that being made out of wood, even the ones that are made out of steel, they will flex under downward pressure, and so I don't want that to affect the accuracy of these dado or these rabbets that I'm cutting into these panels. Now that I have all of my pieces cut and rabbeted, it's time for me to pre-finish them before I assemble the bench. And I do that just because the way I'm going to assemble it, I don't want the contraction of the wood to reveal any unstained portion if I were to stain it after I assembled the bench. So I'm just making a quick little dauber so I can evenly apply my stains. And I start with actually a pre-stained conditioner. Since these are large, flat pieces, I wanted the stain to flow evenly and to blend in well on the wood. And so I first apply the conditioner with my pad, and then once I let that dry for a good hour or so, I come back with another fresh applicator and I begin to apply my stain in the same manner. On this particular project, I used Early American Stain by Minwax. I'm trying to match my customers' cabinets. And so we'll see how it turns out afterwards. But after this, the panels are ready to go. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot.